This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
U.S. crude stocks fell while gasoline and distillate inventories rose last week as refining activity climbed, the Energy Information Administration said on Wednesday. Crude inventories dropped by 1.3 million barrels to 424.4 million barrels in the week ended December 12, the EIA said, compared with analysts' expectations in a Reuters poll for a 1.1 million barrel draw. Wednesday's EIA report marked a sharp contrast from an inventory report released on Tuesday by the American Petroleum Institute showing a 9.3 million barrel draw in stocks last week. Crude inventories at the Cushing, Oklahoma delivery hub fell by 742,000 barrels last week, the EIA said.
Oil prices rose slightly on Thursday as investors assess the likelihood of further U.S. sanctions against Russia and the supply risks posed by a blockade of Venezuelan oil tankers. Brent crude rose 32 cents or 0.54% to $60 per barrel at 0910 GMT. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was up 38 cents, or 0.68%, at $56.32 per barrel. U.S. intentions to impose more sanctions against Russia and its threatened blockade of tankers under sanctions and carrying Venezuelan oil pushed prices higher, PVM analyst John Evans said.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
Israel has approved a deal that will supply natural gas to Egypt, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Wednesday, describing it as the country's largest ever gas deal. Israel signed the export agreement in August with Chevron and its partners, New Med and Ratio, to supply up to $35 billion of gas to Egypt from the Leviathan natural gas field. I have today approved the largest gas deal in Israel's history. The deal is for 112 billion shekels, $34.67 billion. Netanyahu said in a televised statement.
China's exports of refined oil products dropped 2.2% year-on-year in November but rose 13.3% from the previous month, customs data showed on Thursday. Refined oil exports, which include diesel, gasoline, aviation fuel and marine fuel, totaled 5.12 million metric tons for the month, up from 4.52 million metric tons in October. From January to November, China exported 52.65 million metric tons of refined oil, down 3.2% year-on-year. Gasoline exports stood at 610,000 metric tons in November, down 51.7% year-on-year. From January to November, China exported 7.69 million metric tons of gasoline, down 16% from the same period last year. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. China's Commerce Ministry said on Thursday that it had granted several general licenses for rare earth exports, a new category of permit that aims to speed up shipments of the vital elements. Responding to a question from Hong Kong media about reports that Beijing had issued some of the licenses for European firms, a ministry spokesperson said applications had been approved but did not specifically mention Europe. Some exporters have already preliminarily met the basic requirements for applying for a general license, the spokesperson said at a regular weekly briefing. As far as I know, some applications for general licenses submitted by Chinese exporters have already been received and approved.
Copper prices move in opposite directions on Thursday, as the market focused on the outlook for U.S. interest rates, while waning confidence in the artificial intelligence sector weighed on sentiment. The most traded copper contract on the Shanghai Futures Exchange closed 0.23% higher at 92,600 yuan, $13,151.73, a metric ton. The benchmark 3-month copper on the London Metal Exchange declined 0.16% to $11,718.50 a ton, as of 0718 GMT.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
Chicago wheat futures found their footing on Thursday but remained near 8-week lows after China cancelled purchases from the U.S. and as large harvests in News Story and News Story poured new grain into a well-supplied market. Soybean futures were flat after falling on Wednesday when the U.S. Department of Agriculture news story to China and unknown destinations, and oil prices recovered some ground, supporting biofuel feedstocks. Corn rose for a second day due to strong U.S. news story, though pressure from low wheat prices limited gains. Wheat competes with corn in the animal feed market.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.